desenvolvimento e sustentabilidade. Que desafios para as organizações.
Bom, estamos aqui para falar sobre desenvolvimento e sustentabilidade, e se vamos falar de desenvolvimento, temos de falar necessariamente de inovação. E se falamos de inovação, falamos de tecnologia, falamos de criatividade, mas isto num contexto global levanta desafios. Desafios ao nível das pessoas, ao nível da ética, que muitas vezes ficam ameaçadas. É esta reflexão que vamos fazer nos próximos minutos, numa conversa moderada por António Cunha, Presidente da Delegação Regional do Norte da Ordem dos Economistas.
Bom dia a todos e obrigado, Ana. Vamos começar a primeira mesa desta sessão com a presença e a participação de 4 convidados que muito nos orgulham de ter aceito participar neste evento. Antes de mais, também agradeço à ULSM a organização de mais o Connecting Healthcare, mais uma conferência destas, que já como aconteceu nos anos passados, tem a participação de personalidades com grande relevo e com grande experiência na indústria. Esta mesa será ligeiramente diferente, não vamos falar tanto de saúde, mas sim de inovação. O primeiro convidado é bem conhecido de todos os portugueses, o professor Alexandre de Quintanilha. Eu pergunto se ele já está disponível. Se não estiver, temos o segundo convidado, que é um investidor indiano de seu nome Gajendra Narang, que também pergunto aqui à nossa organização se já pode colocar no ar. Vamos ao terceiro convidado, é responsável de recursos humanos da Roche, em Portugal, a nossa convidada Karen Leach. E parece que estamos com problemas técnicos. Por fim, tentaremos o último convidado e fazemos a inversão da ordem. Giorgio, empresário da indústria de software com mais de 30 anos de experiência. Giorgio. Hello, John. I ask for the help of technical support because we cannot listen to Giorgio. Hello, John. Just 1 minute, please, John, so the technical support can connect you to the microphone. Peço desculpa aos participantes e a quem nos está a ouvir por estas dificuldades técnicas. Acontecem quando tentamos fazer estas conferências por vias eletrónicas.
Depending on which part of the world we spend time in. So.
Correct.
Hello, John.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes,
Hello.
I'm hearing you.
Hello. So,
We hear
so
you
we are
very well.
all online and at the same time, but we should be only with one of you at a time. Is Professor Alexandre Quintanilha available?
Yes, I am available, and as soon as you tell me that I can start, I shall do so.
Well, first of all, let me thank you, Professor Alexandre Quintanilha. You'll be the first one to speak. I don't need to present you to the Portuguese people because you are a public figure, a public person here. Maybe everybody knows you. But to the other participants in this panel, let me just say that Professor Alexandre Quintanilha is a physicist. Let me check if this is correct. Physicist with yes, with a long experience, almost 50 years of experience in the area, and he has performed several public. He has been president of several commissions of ethics and innovation in Portugal. Professor, please.
Okay, thank you. I understand we've been given 7 to 10 minutes each, and so I will try to be as accurate as possible. First of all, let me thank you for the invitation, and I will start by reminding all of us of a couple of things. First of all, innovation is the result of basically 3 steps. It has to do with curiosity, where we ask questions, new questions, different questions. It has to do with our capacity for imagination, where we tentative provide some answers, and they can be in the form of hypotheses, they can be in the form of narratives, they can be in the form of histories or myths. It depends on which area of knowledge we're dealing with. And then the third step is we test these hypotheses, these narratives, these myths, and we confront these answers with reality of the world outside and our own world. Now, I wanted to start with this because curiosity was not always encouraged. Curiosity has been encouraged for the last 200 years, but before that, it was punished. There are many stories that have to do with punishing curiosity. Perhaps the most well-known one is Adam and Eve, which were punished for trying to eat the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. There are many other examples. Prometheus, Pandora, they all got punished for being curious. Then we went through a period where it was tolerated, and it took people like Jefferson and Kant and Goethe to actually say that curiosity was probably the most important quality that we have. The second point I want to remind everyone is that innovation can be, in fact, of several types. It can be technological, but it can also be social, and it can also be cultural. And we tend to forget these two last components because we focus mainly on the technological aspects of innovation. And innovation in these various domains has allowed humans, us, to enhance a number of different aspects of our lives. It has allowed us to enhance our natural environment. We learned how to perform agriculture and build houses and communication and so on. It has also enhanced our social environment. We got rid of very autocratic regimes, not completely, unfortunately. We gave women the right to vote. We did all sorts of big changes to the social fabric in which we lived. It also allowed to develop our mind, and education has been the main way of increasing our capacity to think and to be critical. And finally, it has also allowed us to change our biology and the biology of other species. Now, in our own biology, it has helped us to prevent and treat disease, but also to control life in many different ways. And this has had a huge impact on our planet and on the humanity that is pervasive in that planet. And so it's not surprising that we've had a number of very large paradigm shifts over the ages. Let me talk about myself. In the first half of my life, the first 40 years of my life, population doubled of the world, food production increased 3 times, water consumption 3 times, energy consumption 4 times, and waste production 3 to 4 times. In the second half of my life, there have been very big changes. There are new and old diseases that have appeared. There are huge nutritional challenges, people that eat too much and people that don't have enough to eat. There is water scarcity. Extreme events are increasing. The world temperature is increasing. They just measured the temperature in the desert in California, reached 55 degrees centigrade a few weeks ago. And life expectancy in many ways, in many places of the world, has actually decreased. All of this combined with social inequalities that are increasing, job insecurity, the Gini coefficient is increasing, nationalisms and fundamentalisms are also increasing, and knowledge is being questioned by many leaders around the world, unfortunately. The current challenges are very different in the developed and in the developing world. In the developed world, which is the one we belong to, there are diseases of aging, there's too much food, and lifestyle types of stress, loneliness, solitude, depression. In the developing countries, we have infectious diseases that are predominant, access to health and education by many people in those communities, malnutrition, and survival stress. Let me end by illustrating what I'm saying, reminding us again of what has happened in the last 5 to 6 decades. Population of the world trebled, increased 3 times in the last 5 to 6 decades. The urban population increased 5 times, and the energy consumption of our world increased 8 times. This means that there are huge megacities appearing all over the world, which are islands of heat. The temperature is much higher in the cities than outside, where there are huge numbers of humans, animals, and all kinds of vectors of disease, things that transmit disease. This constitutes a perfect petri dish for pandemics, and so that's what we are actually witnessing. In many cities, in fact, we have the double burden of the diseases of the wealthy and the diseases of the poor, so it's even more complicated in cities. Per capita, and I'm almost at the end, the Chinese at the moment consume about 1/4 of what Americans use. The Indians consume about 1/10, and Africans consume about 1/20, and all of them want to live the way we live. So the consequences to climate are not very difficult to predict. And Europe is trying to be sort of a light in this, trying to deal with the question. But I will end by saying that, as usual, women come to our aid. And there was a very interesting article in Lancet a couple of weeks ago, which showed that falling birth rates all over the world are happening. The director of the Population Foundation in India actually has a very interesting statement where he says education is the best contraceptive pill that we know. And in fact, what is happening is by the end of the century, probably the population of the world is decreasing. The paradigm shift that is occurring is that while before, and this is my last word, and I find this interesting, is while before those who didn't have children were considered childless, they were sort of pitied that they didn't have children, now they are considered child-free. And that is a very big change in paradigm. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. I will be back to you at the end of the other presentations because I have one question. I'm an economist, and your speech made me remind of a famous economist of 200 years ago, Malthus, that wrote about the same thing that you are saying today, but we'll talk later. I ask if Mr. Gajendra Narang is online, please. No, so we move forward to Miss Karen Leach. Are you with us?
I am, if you can hear me. Good morning.
Hello, Karen. Thank you for being here. Let me present Karen to the people here that are attending the conference. Karen is the Roche, the pharmaceutical company, she was head of human research and now of people and development. And she has, I believe, 13 years of experience with Roche. And she's here to speak about innovation in her company or in the marketplace. Please, Karen.
Okay, so thank you very much. It's a great honor for me to be here with you today. I hope everybody's enjoying their morning. So my name's Karen Leach. I am really honored to be living in Portugal, in this beautiful country at the moment, down near Lisbon. And I'm the People and Culture Director at Roche. And I've been helping people and organizations to achieve their full potential for more than 20 years now. So I'm passionate about the difference that people can make. And what I want to talk to you about is about the future of work, right? And why I believe that now more than ever, we need to vastly increase how much we trust and empower our people. And that's what will create a sustainable future. So I was very interested in the last talk we had because, you know, curiosity and learning is fantastic, but without empowerment and autonomy, how can we realize that? You know, that then stops us getting access to these insights and talent. And I think that the future of work, people will remain really at the center, even with all the massive technology advances that we have. And even though the world is changing so fast, so quickly, we can hardly keep up these days. So in order to help our people keep up and work quickly and be agile and flexible, we need to vastly increase how much we empower our people and trust our people, and move away from putting in controls and rules and hierarchies in order to be sustainable in the future. And so this is what I believe, and I'm going to share with you 2 examples of this new way of working and creating a new culture that we are using at Roche today. And I'm just hoping that you might find some ideas in it, or you may just find it slightly interesting. So, so I'm going to share these with you. And the first example is around the introduction of self-managed teams. So we've introduced self-managed teams, which we call squads. And why have we done this? We've done this because we want to make sure that the employees, that work closest with our customers are the ones that can make the decisions and decide what work needs to be done. Okay, so the squads are very small groups of no more than 5 people, because small teams are much more effective than big teams. And they are a group of 5 people with different experiences that come together to be fully dedicated to a therapy area. And they're completely responsible for that. They work in 90-day cycles, and during that time, they get input and insights from their customers to help them decide what work they should focus on. And they identify the work they should do just for a 90-day period. So not long-term planning, sort of short, medium-term planning. And most importantly, they're responsible for all the decisions related to that therapy area. They're empowered, so there's no more running up and down the hierarchy to get approvals, to get agreements, to get higher levels of management to agree to things. So why have we done that? And it's to enable these people to be as quick and agile to respond to their customers and to their environment when we get these huge environmental changes, to be able to react to those. And what happens at the end of their 90 days is they do what we call a retrospective, and some of you will have heard of this approach. But they come together as a group and they dedicate their time to giving each individual in the team feedback about how they've performed and what behaviours they need to improve. So we're driving peer-to-peer feedback and growth through that. And they also look at the work achievements, what they've done well, what they've failed at, and what they can learn, and what they're going to do for the next 90 days, and they work in this cycle. And we believe that this gives them more autonomy and power and opportunity to adapt as they work. We've been doing this for just over a year, so we've recently done a review and seen where we are, and it's very successful. We've 9 squads, but we have found that the magnitude of some of the behavioural change is quite significant, more than maybe we expected. And in 2 areas. One is around the autonomy of decision making for the teams, and the other is, maybe you don't have surprise on this, but in removing the hierarchy. So with the autonomy of decision making, the teams were reticent, like a little nervous to embrace individual decision making and avoiding that responsibility. And so they were still trying to get complete consensus with decision making, leads to longer meetings, more debate, increases the amount of decisions that start going back up the hierarchy. And so we wanted to help them to address that. And we've just introduced a consent-based decision-making model for them to use. And this is where it clearly identifies that an individual is responsible for a decision. And they may go and consult with others that they need in order to make a great decision. But ultimately, they're responsible for the decision-making. And the others that they consult are really not encouraged to say no. We ask them to consider if they can live with a decision. It may not be their preferred one, but is it good enough? And only if they can't live with it would the squad escalate that. And we believe that this will make a difference to the speed of decision making. And then the other issue has been around hierarchies, and that, to be honest, that's an ongoing discussion of how leaders can embrace a new role. So we're trying to get them to move away from management of work and budgets and decisions, and move towards being a coach for the team and a catalyst for the team, and being like an inspiration for the team and a challenger. So they're there nurturing and encouraging the team to thrive. And this is quite a shift for our leaders. that those that have adopted this have found it quite fulfilling and are enthusiastic. And so at Roche, we see the future of leadership as being very different, but still really important and really critical. So, you know, we're not putting our leaders in a high-risk situation, we're just asking them to develop and evolve. And so there was just one short example that second one that I wanted to share with you. And this is more about how we're helping to build a culture of trust and empowerment in our employees. And this one is linked to the pandemic. So we very quickly realized that we could no longer be working in the office, just like everybody else. We had to move to virtual working. And we recognized then the power of technology to enable us. And we were able to really quite quickly connect with each other and with our customers and to do our work quite effectively virtually. So, and after a while, we started to see some advantages to this way of working, right? Several advantages. A lot less time spent traveling and impacting the environment in doing so. Meetings that were more focused and shorter. Being able to have specific meeting time with customers that was time boxed, so it meant much more time for ourselves and our customers. And very importantly, people felt they had the opportunity to focus on quiet work and get that quality work done while still having a nice time with their family. Their work-life balance was improved. So we thought, well, in this situation, what is the purpose of the office? What's the new office? And so we asked our employees, we did a survey and said, so what is the future of the office to you? And actually 82% of people said that they really felt they could do their best work if they were allowed to do that from anywhere. And 64% only wanted to be in the office a maximum of 1 or 2 days a week. You know, they want that balance. And a huge 90% of people saw the office of the future as like a collaborative hub where they could create and connect with each other, with customers, with external people, innovators, entrepreneurs, startups. And so this is really exciting to me, and so we introduced an experiment called Working from Anywhere. And we've just launched this, and it means that every day each person is able to choose where they can do their best work that day. So they want quiet work, they can work at home. If they want to connect with others, they can work in the office. If they want inspiration and creativity, they can go and do that in nature, out in the forest. We really don't mind, because we're trusting that they will do their best work, and this will sort of motivate them and encourage them in that way. So, why we're doing this is so that each person is entrusted and empowered to choose their best place of work each day. And we'll need to make some changes for this, but so far the feedback has been just overwhelming. Our employees and our people are really positive and have a lot of gratitude to work in this way. They feel like Roche understands that they're committed to their work, right? And that we also, at the same time, respect their personal needs and their personal values. So I hope that's been of interest to you. I'm sure we'll see many more changes in the future of work, but I still see people firmly at the centre, as long as we really trust and empower them to make the most of this environment.
Okay, Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. I'll be back to you later for a question, but I have one question right now. Where can I apply for a job with you?
We're a great place to work. It's great for attracting talent.
Okay. Now we have John Di Giorgio online. Hello, John.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, John. Thank you for being with us. Let me present you to the audience. Giorgio is the owner and former CEO, now chairman of a software company founded more than 30 years ago. Started working with old guys like myself, remember Lotus Notes. I think you started by working on that platform, so a spreadsheet, and now it has become something completely different. You've lived for 30 years with innovation in the technology sector, in information technology. Can you share with us your opinion on the subject of this conference, of this panel, innovation, Sean?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for including me within this conference. Clearly, change is the fundamental component of innovation. And really, naturally, we as humans are averse to change. We tend to like to stick to our routines. We tend to stick to like-minded friends and colleagues. We like to stick to our comfort zone. Today, we hear a lot about the bubble. This is the bubble in which most people are comfortable about living in. So change can be, I would actually say always is, disruptive. And not just to people, but also to companies. And success tends to lead one to a desire for continuity more than the disruption brought about by change. But we need that level of disruption to drive the change and the innovation, which is so essential to us, both as individuals and looking at it from the company sector. And of course, clearly, we are living in a time of change. We all know about the disruptive effects of COVID, and Karen has given some excellent examples of adapting to the circumstances by bringing more innovation to the thinking. Of course, when we think of innovation, very often we think of new products or modifications, adaptations of existing products. But innovation is also about process innovation, changes in people, in strategies, in markets. And it's important for us also to focus our innovation on these other areas. But typically, innovation is about the new. At least it's about the improvement of the existing. So we have the concept of incremental innovation as well as the very disruptive innovation. And obviously there are many examples of both of those. If you think of the more disruptive technologies that we came through, the low-cost airlines or the Uber type of model of business, which was very disruptive to what existed prior to that. And of course, during this COVID period, one of the words which has become very fashionable is the word pivot, where we talk about changing strategies, we talk about adapting to what used to be referred to as the new normal. I'm glad to hear that we're not using that term very much any longer, the new normal, because it's really probably an adaptation to business as it should have been, rather than business as normal. And therefore, we've seen lots of changes in strategy, changes in approach, changing in products, but it's always about change. And therefore, this element is particularly important here. Clearly, if we're thinking about healthcare, the greatest amount of innovation is currently focused around the testing and the vaccine development related to the COVID situation. Clearly, a massive amount of innovation is being attempted quite successfully. And every day we hear something new. This morning, I was reading an article about an Israeli company that claims, I say claims, to have invented a very rapid self-test which is really a gargling, which is going to be trialed at airports, which sounds very, very promising, and the changes there. But of course, going back to pivoting and innovation there, we've seen lots of examples of alcohol companies whose demand for their products reduced, swapping production lines to the production of hand sanitizers, for instance, or the supply chain within Coca-Cola changing towards delivery models for hand sanitizers, or companies like Dyson pivoting and creating ventilators from their technology for their vacuum cleaners. And clearly, one of the things that everyone must have experienced so far has been the acceleration of change. In other words, processes that we may have had, projects that we may have had or intended to do in the future that suddenly had to be brought forward. And we've all, no doubt, experienced those types of accelerated projects. And of course, innovation is always about conceiving something that ideally has not occurred before. But we often have no clues, at least for radical innovation, because the problem is that we tend to look at the future with the eyes of the past, and that's not always useful. And I think the best example I came across of this is actually imagine if we did our weather forecasting for tomorrow and the next day based on what the weather was yesterday and the day before that. 3 days of rain, you'd actually conclude we're going to have another 3 days of rain. Clearly, that's not necessarily the appropriate way of doing this. And really, one of the key elements to innovation is opportunity identification. The situation where individuals, and it is individuals usually, see a situation differently to what others are seeing in that situation. Seeing something with fresh eyes or a different vision. And this very often comes down to the diversity of thinking within groups. I was thrilled to hear Karen talking about the squads where all the people have a different area of expertise to avoid the groupthink and have people contributing from different perspectives. That's something which is particularly important. And I'd just like to share very quickly an example of that from my own experiences. We actually were once doing a project for Malta International Airport. I'm based in Malta. And we realized that the airport sector around the world, generally speaking, 50% of airports lose money. And of the 50% that do make money, only 5% make money flying passengers. The rest make money out of the retail shops and the food and beverage outlets and the car parks and the hotels, what's referred to as the non-aviation sector. And there was no software product to help airports manage that business. And it was a multi-billion-dollar business, $15 billion actually a year, the latest count, prior to COVID, I would add. There was no product in that field, and what we did was we went through the research and the market opportunity analysis, et cetera, and we did create a product aimed at that with a strategy to be acquired by one of the major airport software specialists that typically are selling to airports which are in selling to the sector of the airports which is losing money, which is the operational side. And in fact, that was a successful strategy, and we were acquired 3 years ago. So really the moral of that story was clear strategy and vision of an idea, an opportunity, and then good execution. And I would like to break down what I refer to as the myth of the garage. everyone, even retrospectively, says, oh yes, I invented that in my garage, or something like that. Typically, it's actually very unusual. Innovation is not usually through a single idea resulting from that illuminated moment, that eureka moment. It's actually quite rare. Most ideas have a very long incubation period, and breakthrough ideas are usually coming around as a result of a much more collaborative exchange of ideas, exchange of mistakes also between people. And very often that's around the conference table, it may be by the coffee machine or the water cooler that people exchange these sort of ideas. And therefore, the innovation is coming about very often in that case. And sometimes innovative ideas occur almost in a vacuum and then says, great idea, but what can we do with it? So in other words, the idea is actually then looking for a use case beyond when it's been created. So it's not often that the idea is for a purpose. The idea is almost on its own, standing on its own, and then we start to think of what can we use it for. A classic example was text messaging in the mobile phone environment. It wasn't designed to do what it was designed to do. It was actually for British telecom engineers to communicate while they were out in the field, oddly enough. So what do we need for innovation and creativity? Clearly, we need those collaborative environments. And in fact, one of the things we do have to be careful of is what Karen was talking about. If we're all working remotely, our ability to continue to collaborate may be impaired, and we have to be very careful about that. And we have to facilitate these mini ideas and stitch them together. And I loved Alexander's comments about curiosity, because that's the bedrock of where this all starts from. And then the stitching together of the ideas into product, projects, process, innovation. So really, collaboration is a key element of this innovation, together with the opportunity identification that I spoke about. And we just need to have lots of bad ideas before we can have good ideas. I don't know if any of you are, or many of you are aware of the WD-40 product, the oil spray. It's called WD-40 because it was the 40th edition. They failed 39 times before they actually succeeded. So we have to embrace the fear of failing and provide that support for people to fail and to be brave.
Okay,
and
John.
Clearly, innovation is a global thing. It's not something which we can only do in certain parts of the world. It's about the attitude that people are in and brought up in. It's about the culture. It's about the diversity of your network of people that you collaborate with. It's about making opportunities available, but giving people the skills to identify those opportunities. It's very important not just for them to have those. And of course, finally, I would say that in a time of crisis like this, innovation will thrive. We're actually in a situation where crisis is about a fertile ground for innovation. Think of the regrowth that you see after a forest fire. That's the place where we are in at the moment. Lots of examples and people actually being forced to innovate and being pushed out of their comfort zone.
John, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your speech. Thank you very much. I have, John, I have lots of questions for you. I don't think we'll have time, but I will try to speak at the end again. Now, we have Mr. Gajendra Narang online. Hello, Gajendra. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I am able to hear you, and hello to all my fellow friends here.
Thank
hello
you
from India.
Hello. thank you for being with us today. Let me just present you. Mr. Gajendra Narang is an investor. He has long experience in investments, real estate, and also industrial products. I would just ask you to start your presentation about innovation and what are your views on this theme.
Hello friends, I am properly audible?
Yes, we are listening. Yes.
Thanks a lot. So first of all, greetings from India, this side of the world, and it is my pleasure to join this wonderful conference and to give my ideas and to give what is happening in India and this kind of geography. And I would like to thank my Rotary International District Governor batchmate Giorgio to invite me for this wonderful conference, and would love to give you the insights on what kind of innovations and what kind of investment strategies are being adopted in this COVID-19 scenario as far as India is concerned. So friends, I would divide it in 3 parts. One will be overall economy. I will talk about what is there in India. Then I will talk about what kind of impacts came after the COVID-19 was there, and then in my particular segment of real estate and food products, how we are taking innovations into. So if we talk about the Indian economy, well, let me tell you that India is at the center of transformation right now, and already home of 1/6 of the world population. It will be the most populous country by 2030, and it is widely understood that India will play a leading role in determining the relative success or failures of the sustainable development goals it has. It is a rapidly growing economy with a huge domestic market and an important role in global supply chains. Currently around about $2.72 trillion economy it is, and the government has set a target of becoming a 5 trillion economy in GDP till 2024. It is the world's 2nd largest producer of the food by calorie content and home to 10 fastest growing cities. India energy demands would be double by 2040, with electricity demands potentially tripling as a result of increased appliances ownerships and cooling needs. However, it is also that due to some climatic changes, there are many much innovations going on in this field. And as far as the new system after the COVID is concerned, they are all now changing and highly becoming digital. Friends, let me tell you that India was very much fortunate that the COVID pandemic not directly came to India, but we had some time when the world was going on through this pandemic. But in India, it came round about 30 days, 20 to 30 days later. So our Prime Minister and our ministerial departments had that time to see that what is happening with this kind of pandemic and how the situation has to be tackled. There were 2 options in front of the government. One was that to focus only on economy and let everything be opened up and not plan for the shutdown. And the second option was to do a shutdown of the whole country and let everything goes down and the chain of this virus can be broken. So the Prime Minister of India took the second option as their priority. A total lockdown of this big country, you can just assume how difficult it would have been that this big country can go for a lockdown, and lockdown not for a day or 2, but so many days. So the Prime Minister chose the second option of going lockdown. The advantage of the lockdown was that the pandemic seriousness was decreased, and the government and the ministries and the departments and the administration got so much of time to be prepared by the hospitals, by the ventilators and by other means. And the most important, that they were able to aware the people about what this virus is all about, they were able to educate people that you have to wear masks, you have to sanitize yourself, you have to make the social distancing. So because of that, the government was able to save a lot of lives. But when we see towards the economy part, yes, there was a major loss on that. The highly growing GDP fall drastically. The industries were shut down, and the things were not in that shape in which it were before this pandemic. Now what? The things moved on. The industries looked upon innovation. They were more focused on those particular things where they can strive by the current scenario, and the adaptability was the main thing which they have to do. Many industries, the main what they did was, the first thing was that as they started again, they cut down their workforce. They put a major difference in the working style, and a lot of people were separated, and where there is an industry where there are, say, suppose 500 workers were there, the work was more automated and it was done by 100 workers or so. Where the industry was running for say 12 hours in a day, they ran it for 24 hours, but the shifts manpower, which was say around about 300 or 400 in a shift, they changed it to 100 or so, so that the people touching and coming in contacts and everything can be avoided. So this kind of adaptability was done by the industries, and the first and the foremost adaptation and innovation came in the sales part. All the systems of sales were automated. Now the things are more towards digital marketing, and more people, the local market is also inclined towards getting the things online, doing the shopping online, things which were not even supposed to see virtually and purchase. People very much got adopted to those kind of strategies, and now all the industries are putting their major stake on the innovation of their sales part, their innovation on the R&Ds, and some of the industries I would let you know that which gained a lot and which lost a lot. So the industries, the transformation in the industries is like that. The industries like hotel, industries like tourism, industries like aviation, these industries fall down, and the industries like IT, industries of digital marketing, industries of pharmaceutical, especially industries with a lot of R&D, industries with their fast logistics, these industries came up. And in the coming year or 2 years, it is being seen that these kind of industries will definitely move ahead. Talking about the geographical movement of the people, let me tell you that a lot of skilled workers in India are scattered towards the cities. So what happened during this pandemic, they were all, as the industries shut down and the unemployment raised, so they were all forced to go to their parent states. Because of that, the livelihood of these people was at risk. And so government immediately took a new decision that why not to scatter down the industries and to give them small startups, and how these people can become small entrepreneurs, how the Indian government can give small loans, and how these small scale industries can be developed, so that a person who is in a rural area, if he can develop a industry, maybe a small industry, but if he can stay at his own place and he can get his livelihood, that is also a major innovation and a focus which government is doing. The second thing is that a lot of business tycoons around the world, they are also seeing India as a place where they can do their investments. It is because of two things. One, that the manpower is quite low cost here, and secondly, that it is a very big consumption market also. So 60 to 70% of the production of a company, maybe from any other country, can utilize their products right now with the people of India itself. So seeing those things, the things are fine. But as far as if we talk about the overall scenario, lot many industries after COVID are in a lot of problem. So because of that, government has also declared lot of packages for the banks, so that the companies which are planning for liquidation, the companies who are now not able to run in this post-COVID phase, they have to definitely either shut down or they have to adapt as per the new requirements of this changing scenario. Now I will talk about the two specific industries in which I am into. One is real estate and second is food. Friends, as far as real estate is concerned, the changes here are like when people were there at their house for 3 to 4 months, they realized that the best place and the safest place is their own home. So the people who were on rent, who were on lease, they planned that they should stop putting rental or lease, but they should buy their own house at least, so that they are safer at that place. Secondly, a lot of business in residentials started because you can say more than 50% of work right now in India is also going from their own house. So people are at their house and doing work from their own place. Because of that, the commercial properties are down, but the residentials have increased because now the work at home system is also generated. And if we talk about the overall scenario, lot many high-tech innovations are being done in real estate. Now about food industry, definitely because it is a thing which is a basic need of everybody. And so in food, there was no downfall as such. But now after this COVID-19 scene, lot of nutritional aspect has been increased. And now people are moving more towards the organic part. People are trying to get as much as nutritional products so that they can develop their own immunity and they can go with natural products. So food market is very fine here, and it is developing with much more innovation and R&D as far as development of their imitation and other fields are concerned.
Gajendra, we are finishing our
time. I would like to sum up in the way that innovation everybody is talking about, and they are now investing more on R&D. And I feel that after say a couple of months, as it is expected in India that we are almost near the peak of COVID, and till after December it will lower down, and so from there I think industry will again gear up. So that is all about India as far as the stipulated time given to me. There is a lot more to discuss, and we'll be in touch for that. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Gajendra. It was very interesting, and I hope you're right. By December, things will get better. Well, I asked, thank you very much, Gajendra. We don't have much more time. I only have time for one question. I wonder if Professor Alexandre Quintanilha is still online. Can you?
Yes, I am. I'm still listening.
So I will put you one question, and then we have to finish our panel, because the next panel should be starting right now. But Professor, as I told you, I'm an economist, and I listened to your intervention, and made me remember the late economist Malthus, who predicted that humankind would deplete the planet of resources, and would this way commit a collective suicide. I'm not saying that you're saying the same thing. I know you are not, but made me remember that view of Malthus, and also the views of the biblical plagues that usually were sent by God to punish humankind for their excesses. So not going this way, not going to biblical questions or dead economists' theories, do you think that the United Nations have a role in preventing the loss of life quality that we gained in the last century, that you just mentioned, that is becoming worse and worse?
Let me, we could spend the whole afternoon answering that question. I'm not going to do that. Let me make some very quick remarks about the talks that we've heard, because I think they're very important and they complement each other. Karen talked about the need, the importance of empowerment. And I couldn't be more in agreement with that. I mean, it's obvious. And in fact, there is a huge success story to be told about the empowerment of women in the world, which is fairly recent. It's not a very old story, but it's a success story. John talked about the fact that innovation takes time. It's not a single event. It's not one person. It needs collaboration. And we need to move out of the comfort zone. And it's obvious that that is what many of us believe, and that crises, in fact, can be empowering. Crises are ways in which we have to find alternatives to the way we live. So I think it fits very well into this discussion. And Gajendra talked about the need for adaptability. And if you think about, change, adaptability, empowerment, these are all examples of change that is required and that is actually happening. My point about what's happening in the population of the world is that the United Nations has predicted that we probably will reach a maximum population of the world around the end of the century, around 11 billion people. The recent publication in Lancet, which is a milestone because it's an extraordinarily well done document, says that we will probably reach a maximum in the 60s. In 2060, 61, 64, we will reach a maximum of population, and after that it will decrease. And it's based on actual data. I mean, what we're seeing at the moment is that in many, many countries, many of these countries are not, the birth rates are not at the replacement level that is 2.1 children per woman. This is actually happening. This is happening in many countries. And in fact, what they suggest is that the empowerment of women has made them realize that procreation isn't the only thing that they can do to be useful in the world. And so in many, many countries, as the levels of education increase, the levels of birth rates are actually decreasing. And they predict, and this is a prediction, but it's based on observation of what's happening at the moment, they predict that by the end of this century, in 185 countries out of the 193 total, the birth rates will be below replacement level. What this means in terms of economy is that we have to find a way of using, between quotes, of using the population that we have to be productive and to be empowered and to do things that makes their quality of life better. And so instead of barking about the fact that we don't have enough young people, maybe we can use some of the older people that we have and that have accumulated so much knowledge in the process. So it needs a shift in terms of the way in which we use the population pyramids that are actually changing. The United Nations, I think, is an incredibly important body. I have an enormous amount of respect for them. I know the man with the orange hair on the other side of the Atlantic doesn't think so, but I don't think very much of the man with the orange hair on the other side of the Atlantic. So I think we are quits on this particular issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.